Hello everybody, welcome. I'm No02, thank you for watching this video. We are here to begin a journey of Haz-5 solo missions. We'll go through all of the classes eventually, but we'll begin with the Scout. But why Haz-5? I don't want to necessarily say that this is going to be the best way to farm. Obviously, a team of 4 people coordinated, working together to complete missions as quickly as possible. That'll be the best way, most efficient way to farm XP and credits, but what I've come to discover, which I thought was kind of interesting and kind of fun too, is that when it comes to increasing the overall time spent in a mission, it tends to be that mission length and cave complexity tend to be bigger factors in how long you end up spending in a mission. Whereas increasing your difficulty up to Haz-5 essentially doubles the amount of credits and XP that you can gain, but doesn't necessarily double the amount of time that you need to spend in the mission to complete that primary objective. I've also been learning a lot just about the game in general and the flow of it, and sort of getting the understanding of how and when things are spawning and timers and blah blah blah. I've been learning a lot doing Haz-5 solo missions, and I'm going to show you here through a series of videos how to play solo Haz-5 missions. I'll give you a build with the Scout for each of the mission types, and we'll go through it, and in conjunction with that, we'll do like a proof of concept video where I will then take those builds and play through a Haz-5 mission, talk about my my philosophy, my understanding, my thoughts, and just give a demonstration of how you can do it yourself and things like that. If you're looking for a challenge, don't want to play with other people, or if you do feel like that there's some better time spent as far as farming credits and things like that. I also do hope to in the future potentially do this with all of the classes, so that you don't just have to play Scout as well. So I do think that the Scout is probably the best and easiest, most reliable means or way of farming these missions quickly, reliably, comfortably. The Scout is probably the best solo clutch character in the game. But before we get into any of that, this video will simply be about our good friend BOSCO. That's right, BOSCO. So keep in mind that this BOSCO build is specifically for us playing with the Scout in solo Haz-5 missions. And for the most part, I find that this BOSCO build that we have here works for just about all of the mission types. If there's any changes, I'll let you guys know. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Here we'll talk about the what I've chosen exactly for the build, and a little bit of gameplay philosophy is how we're going to utilize BOSCO, which of course we'll get more into when we actually do the gameplay footage and things like that. We begin with Mining Expert. When it comes to the damage, it's a drop in the bucket. BOSCO, we don't want BOSCO for damage outside of his rockets, his little gun turret thing. Not very good. Better time spent to have BOSCO mining and doing other things, basically making some sort of forward progress as far as our objective is concerned. Whether that's mining nitra, mining orkite, gathering a crystal or an egg, or even just mining the next compacted dirt pile so that we can open up a new path and keep going and things like that. Why no extra life, even though it's Haz-5? Because we're the Scout. Remember, this is the build for the Scout here. And for the most part, because of the grappling hook, you should never die. Almost never die. It's really hard to get trapped, really hard to get stuck. We can save ourselves from falling if we make little mistakes. And the better you are with the grappling hook, the less likely you end up needing this life. And having the extra mining speed is so nice. It's so convenient, and it's going to be a big part of how we end up utilizing BOSCO to its fullest over the course of many, many missions. We'll pick up the rockets, and then we want extra rocket ammo. And essentially, we put ourselves in a position where BOSCO is either shooting rockets or he's mining, and that's about it. And there's no in-between for us for the most part. Unless we're literally just like having to get on top of a horde event or swarm event and get it under control, and there's nothing for BOSCO to do other than shoot his little pew-pew guns, then sure, BOSCO will help us deal with that. But we want the extra rocket ammo because that's just the bulk of his damage, the bulk of his sort of combat relevance is in these rockets, so we want an extra rocket overall. And again, no life because we're the Scout, we have the grappling hook, no life in general, blah, blah, blah. Extra light? Why would you choose this? Now, this is the weakest branch here when it comes to the cryo explosion, the hardened frequency explosions, right? The armor removal, or the fear. All three of these feel pretty non-factors for us, right? For the most part, though, we don't want the cryo explosion because it does remove all the damage. And so he freezes a nice chunk of enemies, but then we have to shoot it ourselves anyways. And then Hazard-5, swarm events, there's a lot of enemies sometimes, and so sometimes we just can't do that ourselves. So I'm finding not really worth it. Not really worth it. Maybe there's a particular build, maybe with like the flame arrows and some other sort of AoE damage, maybe a different character, this would make sense, but for the scout here, this is not it. Armor. Every time I look up a video for armor, people go, I don't understand how armor works, but this is what I think. And so, for the most part, again, removing armor from our enemies, not a big deal. I mean, for the most part, we're shooting enemies in the weak spot anyways. For the scout, we can maneuver very easily to get vantage points on enemy weak points and things like that. And a lot of times, too, because of the scout, we're running the pheromone bolt, and having a high health enemy with lots of armor is actually totally fine. Like being able to pheromone bolt an oppressor over and over and over again, and then like shoot a rocket at him to do AoE damage to enemies that have gathered up around him. We don't really care about removing the armor at all. In fact, having the armor, I think, makes him beefier and lasts longer, so we have more pheromone targets easily over the course of a chunk of time in the mission and things like that. So the fear the rocket, I guess this is the best of the three here. We kind of want enemies to keep clumping together. So if we got fear effects counteracting with our pheromone bolt effects, that can be kind of annoying. But for the most part, if we shoot a rocket and it scatters enemies away from us, that's fine. Who cares, right? So fear the rocket, that's fine. We choose it because we should have something here, but otherwise it's pretty much a non-factor. Then we have faster regeneration time, and this is sort of like good synergy with the triple rocket here. For the most part, we always sort of want BOSCO regenerating at least one rocket. So if I tend to like very early on, oh, there's 3-4 enemies, I'll just shoot a rocket at them, blow some of them up, things like that. Just keep it on cooldown, right? BOSCO has infinite damage with his rockets. It's just a matter of time. And so the more we keep shooting his rockets, the more that we keep at least one of his rockets on cooldown means that we get to shoot more rockets over time. So a big part of this, right, as we sort of move into the strategy thing here, because the AoE effect we don't really care about so much. I mean, 2.5, pretty small radius. So when it comes to like shooting at a pheromone target for a nice clump of enemies, I typically try not to shoot the high health enemy. I try to shoot like an enemy who's swarming him, and that gets the rocket more into the crowd. Because the high health enemies, the Praetorians and the Wardens and the Oppressors, they're big themselves, so shooting a rocket directly at them, they eat up half of the splash damage. And then the overcharge effect with those bullets, I'm sure there's some nice bit of crowd control here, but again, like the way we're going to be using BOSCO, he's not going to be shooting his pew pew guns as like that often. As much if we have all other choices to him shooting his guns, we want to take those other choices because they're going to be more beneficial time wise as far as how BOSCO is going to help us complete these missions as possible. So we have the faster regen rate. I mean, it's over 50% regen rate. We have 3 rockets, so that means a rocket every 40 seconds, so we keep the rockets on cooldown. It's quite nice. That is how we're going to be utilizing BOSCO. So especially now as the scout here, the sort of general play style, I've already talked about it a little bit, is for the most part, unless BOSCO's shooting a rocket, he's almost never going to be helping us in combat. We want him mining something, drilling something, even if it's just opening up the next pathway. So we as the scout are dealing with things, and we'll have a kit that makes sense for doing that. And then we'll be taking turns. BOSCO will be shooting rockets as it makes sense. When he runs out of rockets, he'll just be mining stuff or doing other things. I mean, if we truly are out of things for him to do, then he'll shoot his pew pew guns. That's fine as well. There's a lot of missions, though, like point extraction or egg hunt, where we can basically zigzag around. We can send BOSCO off to go grab one of those blue rocks, those Aquarius rocks or whatever. Then we can go do something else, like mine something, blah, blah, blah. He'll carry it for us. We can tell him to drop it at the right place. So there's going to be a lot of zigzagging between areas where we'll have BOSCO do something over here. We'll go do something over here. That'll create nice lines where BOSCO will sort of meet us somewhere in the middle, depending on the mission, and things like that. And of course, this won't be true for every mission. It's more like the point extraction, egg hunt missions. But for the most part, the general sense is BOSCO's doing something over there. We're doing something over here. Later on, then, we'll go pick up the nitra that he mined off the ground, or pick up the morkite that he mined off the ground, things like that. But it'll always keep us moving, always keep BOSCO moving, doing things like that. And sort of this will make more sense when we do the gameplay uh, footage and gameplay video, things like that. So, this is Bosco for Scout Solo Hazard 5 missions. Thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas, let me know. I'd appreciate it. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the future.